With Earth under the threat of interdimensional alien invasion, can Earth figure out how to defeat them in time before it is too late? This week we will be reviewing J. Patrick Black's Ninth City Burning. As always, format for the book review, summary of the story, pros, cons, and then my final thought and rating of the book. So, with all that out of the way, let's get started. Ninth City Burning takes place in a Earth that has been devastated by an interdimensional alien invasion by a force called the Valentines. Recently, the Valentines have finally started to win the upper hand in the war, forcing Earth to finally face the hard fact that they need to prepare for the possibility of the Valentines' final invasion. They desperately need to start making plans for how to defend Earth and possibly escape Earth and find another safe place to call home. Starting off with the prose section is going to be the overall story of the book. Overall, I actually love this story as Earth needs to defend itself against an interdimensional alien invasion. That's completely up my alley. I love sci-fi stuff like this, and I really do love the concept of this story as Earth has now been divided into a bunch of basically mega cities, all of which are responsible for defending different points of the Earth. And I really love just the world in this book. I think it's really interesting and really cool, and I really love the kind of pseudo magic system, the Lemity. I'll put the name on the screen so you guys can see how it's spelled. I probably am pronouncing it wrong, but I really do enjoy the overall story of this book, and it really was very much up my alley. But there are massive structural problems within how the book flows. There's a great story idea, it just is not executed very well. On the con section we're going to talk about is the story structure and how this book flows and just the overall structure of this book in general, because I feel like this is one of the biggest problems that I personally had with the book. Like I said in the plot summary, there are 7 different characters that we follow throughout the book. Now, that poses a problem. I really enjoy big ensemble casts like this, but when you have 7 main characters that you have to keep track of, the book does suffer, and I feel like Ninth City Burning suffers that problem in a big way. Because the way the book works, we'll get 2 chapters focused on one specific character, then after those 2 chapters, we'll jump to another character. If we only were focusing on 3, maybe 4 characters, that'd be fine. With 7, there are a lot of problems because these chapters are really short, 5 or 6 pages. They're not that long. So that being the case, when we only get 2 chapters and they're that short, I personally think we definitely didn't have enough time to get to know the characters on a personal level. We had to get through the bigger obstacles of the plot and explore the world and all that, plus balancing all the characterization for 7 separate characters and not having a whole lot of time to do that. So I'll talk about the character problem more in my next con section part, but overall I think this book does suffer a lot from how it's paced and just the lack of time we're given to get to know each of the characters. So, second thing we're going to talk about for the con section, and I know I mentioned this earlier, was the fact that I think we have way too many POV characters that we follow throughout Ninth City Burning. Like I mentioned, there are 7 POV characters in this book. The way the book is structured, we don't have a lot of time to get to know every one of them in any sort of depth. That being the case, at least personally to me, I never got super attached to any of the characters because there were way too many of them, and we don't get a whole lot of time to get to know them deeply on a level to get attached to them. At least I didn't personally, because there are 7 of them. This book suffers from having too many POV characters. There are maybe 3 or 4 that are actually relevant to the overall parts of the story. At least there's 2, Imwe and Toro, who are completely irrelevant and could have more or less been cut entirely to save a whole lot of time in the story and to give the more interesting and more important characters time to actually be fleshed out and explained. There's just way too many POV characters that we're following, and it drives me a little nuts because it's like we're jumping from character to character and you're not getting attached to any of them. At least I didn't, again, get attached to any of them because we were moving way too fast through the characters and the chapters. This book definitely just suffers oversaturation of characters. At least two of them are completely irrelevant. There are a couple of other characters that can be cut or at least combined. Certain characters share very similar plots, and that drives me insane because it's like, if you're gonna have characters have similar plots, just cut one character, focus on something different for another character. This is kind of a problem where there are characters who are basically interacting with each other, doing the same things. Why would you split this one plot point between like two characters and not just have one? That way you could focus up the book and its pacing, and we don't have these weird superfluous characters just going around the story taking up space for it. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy having multiple POV books. Like, I really enjoy having multiple characters that we're following, but I think 7 is really excessive. You could have cut 3 or 4 characters and you would have had a much better book. Night City Burning would have been much better if we had cut a couple of the characters. That way, with those cut characters, we could spend a lot more time on the characters that are actually important to the overall story. Again, that's just my thoughts on the book. If you guys enjoy it, let me know why you enjoy it down in the comments. But to me, there are way too many characters that we follow, and some of the characters aren't even that relevant, and I don't even know why they're in the book in the first place. So, third thing we're going to talk about is the fact that this book kind of drops characters and completely forgets some characters, and this is sort of a continuation of what I talked about with the book having way too many POV characters. We'll be following one character through their chapters, then we'll switch to another character, and then we'll go long stretches through the book not following a couple of those characters. The character that has not been followed for a while will just randomly show back up in the story, and you're kind of like, why are you still here? We weren't following you through a large section of the story. So it's kind of very annoying, and that happens to almost every character at one point or another. So that really hampers the book. One example is one of the characters we follow is a boy named Jax, and Jax is the first character we're introduced to in the book. And then we follow Jax through his 2 introduction chapters. Then there's a big section of the book where Jax is not in there at all. Then Jax reappears maybe a little less than halfway through the book, and you're kind of questioning, like, where was Jax and what was he doing through the rest of the story when we were getting introduced to the other characters? Why introduce Jax and then just completely keep him out of the story for a large section of that? I had a problem with that because I assumed that Jax was going to be one of the key characters because he was the first one we got introduced to. When I saw there were large sections where Jax is not relevant at all into the story, and he only comes up way later down the book. It kind of really bugged me because he was the first one introduced, and Jax is actually not the only character that happens to. All of the characters go in and out of the story. One consequence of us cutting in between characters so much, and those characters not being in the story for large sections, is when we actually do get more than a couple of chapters on them later in the book where they're focused on one specific character. There's like a stretch of like 5 or 6 chapters specifically 1 and 2 characters, but it's the fact that we didn't get to spend a whole lot of time on them early in the book that those chapters really don't have much impact. We're learning basically the basic personalities of those characters in those longer stretches of chapters when it really would have been easier to give us a better explanation of those characters in the beginning. That way you can make their stories more interesting, and we'll care about those characters a lot more when we get a deeper focus on them if we have a good understanding of who they are at the start. Final thoughts on the book here. Overall, I like the concept of Night City Burning with Earth in a massive interdimensional war against aliens. I'm all for a book like that. And I love the concept that Night City Burning was going for, but this book, at least to me, in my opinion, it had a great concept, just weak execution, because we had cut a couple of the characters and tightened up the focus on the more interesting and the more relevant characters. I feel like I would have really enjoyed this book. But as it is, there's just way too many characters to follow. The book doesn't give us enough time with each. The execution just doesn't work. It's kind of a shame, because I think this book could have been really good. I probably would have really enjoyed it. There are just too many structural flaws to this book, in my opinion, that I noticed that really dragged this book down. And to be completely honest, I almost didn't finish this. I got like halfway through the book. I'm like, I can't finishing this because there's just not a whole lot there. I eventually just powered through the book. Overall, I didn't love it because great concept, weak execution. Overall, I think with like really big structural changes and characters cut out from the book, I would have really enjoyed this. I'm going to be giving J. Patrick Black's Night City Burning a 5.5 out of 10. I don't want this video to discourage anyone from reading Night City Burning. If you think you would be interested in the book, go ahead, read it for yourself. I just wanted to express my opinions on the book. I didn't love it, but if you guys have read it and enjoy it, please, again, let me know why you enjoy it in the comments. Read the book for yourselves and let me know what you guys think if you read it in the future. So, if you guys enjoyed this video, do not forget, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you do not miss a video. If you guys want to check out my social media accounts, my Instagram is Ryan Murray Book Reviews, my Facebook is Ryan Murray Book Reviews, my Discord server is also Ryan Murray Book Reviews, and my Twitter is Riley T. Murray. My TikTok is RM Book Reviews. I will put links to everything down in the comments, so you guys can check those out if you want to. As always, if you guys have book recommendations you want me to check out and do videos on in the future, also leave those down in the comments. That is going to be it for me for this week. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. Stay safe, and don't forget, keep on reading.